So we're recording. Um, First time video, second time audio. Um, Now, I think last time we had some things we talked about after we finished recording that we didn't get to talk about. So you had an announcement that is pretty exciting, and I don't know if I have any, but I'll think about it. And if I have any, and you after you finish talking about yours, then maybe I'll share mine. And after that, we can get into some topic.
Yeah. Welcome to our podcast. This is our podcast, MatMul. Um, the announcement I have is last month I wrote a chapter on graphics processing units um, for a textbook on high performance computing. So it's focused on um, the general purpose GPUs, which are used for scientific computing, not the graphic cards. Not the graphic cards we use for gaming. Yeah.
So you
So,
got this lovely graphics card that's capable of doing super cool looking games, and then you're just going to use it for number crunching, for
oh
boring
yeah.
science.
It was like I might sound stupid here, but I honestly did not know that inherently both the graphic cards are different. My dog's barking, looking. What? He's looking in the mirror and barking at himself.
Understandable.
Yeah. So, um, all right, go, go. It's all right. Come here. I'm sorry.
He's heard
uh,
enough about you talking about graphics cards and
yeah, I
GPU
know,
programming.
right? So yeah, I wasn't aware that inherently um, a graphic card is different from a graphic a GPU that's used for scientific computing. I became aware of this while doing my research on the chapter. In fact, I built a gaming machine for myself in a hope that I might use it for like smaller machine learning sort of like CUDA programming slash
Hmm.
machine learning slash experiments that that I'd be getting some speed up, which I was not actually wrong. You'll still get some speed up even if you're using a gaming graphic card. You just won't get the amount of speed up that per CUDA core that you would get for a general purpose graphic card. Give me 1 second.
Sure. Well, that's an interesting perspective. It seems like that would be good to learn from someone who is also kind of exploring the topic. And I mean, there's this sort of this window at a window of time when you're first learning a subject where you're coming into it as a beginner, and so you're asking all the right beginner type questions. And if you're writing a textbooks chapter on this subject, then that's exactly the kind of questions your readers would have, right?
Yeah,
So that seems like that could be a really good place to come from as a perspective as an author. Um,
yeah,
that way you're not like the reader isn't getting it from someone who's so much of an expert that they've forgotten all the parts that trouble the beginners, right?
right.
Been doing
And
it for too long.
yeah, and I'm still curious. Like, so okay, I'm not gonna blabber about this too much, but the gist is that a gaming graphic card has like a fixed function pipeline that cannot be programmable for graphics processing. For graphics processing, basically. So what that means is whenever we build a game, we sort of model like images that that are 3D and they're projected on a 2D. So the image has like some shaders, some, and all of that is done with like some triangulations and rasterizing mechanism and whatever. It has fixed function pipelining units, right? But the gaming pipeline, the graphics pipeline, also has components that are programmable, which needs matrix multiplication, right? I would be interested in like doing this experiment now that with the given CUDA cores, what's the speed up you'll get with a gaming graphic card versus a general purpose graphic card with the same number of CUDA cores? Because NVIDIA, and I'm just talking about NVIDIA because that's the one I have, um, and because I don't think NVIDIA makes the distinction between those different kinds of CUDA cores. So it would be interesting to know.
Interesting. Yeah, I heard a little, I read something a while back about something like dynamically compiling shaders. Um, and so I'm curious what the fixed function, like how fixed is a fixed function? Is it like something that's fixed at compile time and then can be changed for a new program, or is it something that's actually fixed in the hardware and can never be changed?
Yeah, so all of those details I'm still uncertain of because this
Okay.
textbook was for introduction to
Mm,
graphics processing, so it was more focused on the architecture of a GPU.
okay.
And so yeah, there are so many questions that I have, and so many experiment ideas that I have that I want to do. Maybe some of them will be a paper or something. I don't know.
Maybe. And this is a chapter in a book about high performance computing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like how GPUs fit in that bigger topic, right?
Yes. So it's essentially an introduction of how we can leverage, like, whenever a person is leveraging a graphics processing unit for speeding up a program or, yeah, speeding up a program or something, what kind of expectation would they have? Like, it's
Hmm.
GPU is not a magic, right? It's not a magical instrument that'll just if you run any kind of program, it won't make it magically fast. Um, so this chapter is basically giving an idea of what exactly are the differences between a CPU and a GPU, and how a GPU makes the program faster, or how you can leverage the capabilities that GPU provides to make a program faster.
That's pretty cool. I think that would be a useful topic for a lot of people. I mean, I teach a class on computer architecture, and we study a very simple, like RISC core, single core machine, right? Um, and you can see how you could make certain things faster if only you had multiple cores that could run at the same time. And a GPU really just takes that idea and kicks it into high gear with many very simple cores, all operating typically all doing the same thing on different data, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
And
was my announcement for,
very
and
cool.
maybe in some episodes, I don't know what the agenda is for today. If it's GPU, I'm happy to talk about it more, but I'll let you decide that.
All right. Well, we did not actually come up with a topic for today officially. We have a list of topics that we
Mhm.
could choose from. Um,
I was thinking maybe we can, like, if you're not if you've not planned anything specific, maybe we can conclude the previous topic
oh,
from
good
the
idea.
last episode because we never, like, summarize, like, ended it. And I think we sort of left we sort of started with productivity. I somehow mixed the text editor with productivity, and then we kind of shelved the productivity part so we can, like, talk about it a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. So I think we ended somewhere around you were talking about how you had changed your workflow from sort of Emacs org mode centered type of thing. I mean, uh, and then you were using more of a VS Code, and it seems like the motivation for the change came from a bad experience you had working with remote files and um, thinking you lost some work with Emacs, and then it sounds like basically like you didn't actually lose the work, but Emacs made you think that you did because the
Yeah.
user interface was sort of clunky about it and or maybe laggy or something.
So yeah, yeah, that's true. None of that is false. But the major part was if I'm working on two machines, two remote machines simultaneously, I cannot switch. I don't think now Emacs users are gonna like yell at me at this point. But I don't think maybe I just don't know how to do it, and but I don't think Emacs allows you to have multiple remote machines, editing in multiple remote machines possible at the same time. So I'll have to, if I'm working on project one on say machine A, before starting my project two on machine B, I'll have to close the workspace, which at
Huh.
times is a little annoying.
Well, I the way I've been using it, I do occasionally use it for work on remote machines. And I think I've done two different remote machines at the same time without noticing any particularly like breaking things. Um, my biggest complaint with remote editing using Emacs is that if I change networks, like I go from work to home, then, or even if I go from like one building to another on the same, like on the work campus, right? If I switch Wi-Fi somehow, then starting back up seems to be a little rough around the edges. Like it takes a while for it to figure out how to connect to the remote. And this is especially bad if you're running Zoom at the same time, because all of Emacs freezes while it's figuring out what's going on. This is not necessarily a problem with Emacs, but it could be a problem with Zoom plus Emacs.
How
Uh,
dare you, Alex? How dare you make Emacs run in parallel with Zoom?
I mean, really, the real solution here would be I should be running Zoom inside of Emacs, right?
Oh no. Let's not get into that rabbit hole where you can run anything on Emacs, and Emacs is not just an editor, it's an operating system.
Yeah. Well, anybody who is a true Emacs wizard listening will be like, of course you can do this. All you have to do is just, and then some answer, right? But the problem is some of us are not that dedicated. Right?
Yeah.
We just want to get something done, and we kind of like Emacs, but it's not our whole life. And so we have a finite amount of time to spend learning how to make it do our bidding. And for you, at least for some of your tasks, you decided that's not worth it. I'm going to switch to something that's a little bit less friction. And so that's been working out well for you, though, right?
Yeah, yeah, except the org mode part.
Yeah.
And as a side effect, I've realized that the more I'm using VS Code, the less I'm using org mode. That's like
Mm.
happening naturally. I've done something crazy this weekend though. I have installed NeoVim now.
Yeah, that's not crazy. NeoVim is relatively tame compared to, in my opinion, compared to how deep the rabbit hole goes with Emacs.
Hmm, I see. But yeah. All right. I think that's
The
that's
conclusion.
the conclusion that uh, what you just said.
Well, that does segue into a similar but not the same topic, which I think you could also speak a lot about, which is your ideas for uh, like writing papers and keeping your thoughts organized. We've been talking about like the text editor as one part of um, that whole like workflow that you use, but it's not the only thing you use, right? You have, I think, Mendeley as a
Yes.
software for like managing maybe citations and paper like copies of PDFs of things that you want to read, and and you also have something that you use separately for note taking, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so you've got a whole bunch of things going on.
I know.
Um, for me, I'm sort of just like, well, there's probably something that would look better and maybe be a little bit more convenient, but I found a workflow that works well enough for me of like getting citation, the BibTeX from Google Scholar, copying and pasting it into a bibliography file that just grows and grows and grows on my hard drive, and then using that from Emacs to like export PDFs and stuff. And that's good enough for me. I tend to read the actual PDFs sort of separately, and like once I finish reading them, I just, if I need to find it again, I go look in my bibliography.
So do you enter it manually in your
Yep.
bibliography?
Yeah, I copy and paste from Google Scholar.
Hmm.
There's a BibTeX that you can get, like
Yeah.
the citations. They have lots of options like MLA, APA, but there's also a BibTeX format of that same citation. I'll just copy and paste that into a .bib file and include that with my org mode file, and
And
then that's it,
and
sort of.
are you doing this on Mac or Linux?
Mostly Mac.
Okay. So I'm guessing you there's this what's that BibTech? There's that app. So you're not necessarily doing that on a text editor like Emacs or something?
Oh yeah, I copied the plain text like the bibliography
Mm-hmm.
text, which is in that BibTeX format, and I copy it into a text file
Oh,
that
okay.
I opened up inside of Emacs, and
Okay. So
yep.
you're doing it very vanilla
Oh
way.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh, and there are certainly very fancy ways to do this, and yeah, there's
I'm
org ref, which is like the org mode citation framework made by I think John Kitchen or somebody,
mhm.
and it is extremely fully featured. I don't use that because it's too complicated for me to understand. It's like, it has things like you can search for the text of a PDF and have it show up inside of your document linked to it as
Yep.
you're typing. And uh, that's more advanced than I have time to think about.
So yeah, my workflow is um definitely it utilizes a lot of tools. So Mendeley is one of them. One Mendeley is a citation manager, and there are multiple. Like Mendeley is not the only one in its class. I know one more. It's called Zotero maybe, and I've never used it, so I wouldn't be able to say much about it. I like Mendeley. Uh, it has scope of improvements. Like its UI seems pretty old, um, but it does the job. It has like a web, a browser plugin. So whenever I read a paper, I can just click that icon on the browser and add it to my library. So the library is on cloud, and I have different folders. So for instance, I was working on that GPU chapter, so I have a folder called GPU. And instead of adding it uncategorized, I can just say add it to GPU on the web browser. And what it does is it itself, that plugin itself, finds the citation, also gives me the option of downloading the PDF um, in the library. So I have access to the citation and the PDF on my local machine and on each and every machine I have Mendeley installed on. It lets me read papers on the Mendeley app as well, which lets me search anything, any word, and list all the papers that contains that word, which is helpful, I think.
That seems like a really good feature, especially if it's like a decent search, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like if you search for a particular phrase, does it do like fuzzy match type searching?
I can actually show you.
Oh, sure.
That's why we have video today.
Yeah. One thing I
Okay.
noticed that is a drawback when using the PDF viewer that's the one that comes with the Mac by default is if you search for some text and
Right.
it's included in the PDF, but it's hyphenated somewhere,
I
then it
see.
doesn't find that, I
S-
don't think.
Right. So this is basically my library containing all the documents, and then I have some papers on GPUs. I'm working on asynchronous BFS right now. I have something on graph pattern matching. So
Mhm.
I can search anything here. Let's say we search for bulk synchronous parallel.
Okay, I
So
gotta
now I
lean
have
in
these
close and
many
look at this.
papers, right? Oh, is the font
All
too
right.
small?
Well, my eyes are older than yours, so so it looks like it's matching for bulk hyphen synchronous parallel.
Yeah.
So you search for three separate words, all lowercase, bulk, synchronous, and parallel.
Yep.
And it's finding the hyphenated version, it's finding one that's all caps, um, finding with different capitalizations. Yeah,
Yep.
that's pretty
And
good.
I can double click the paper and it just opens right here.
Of course, we don't know if it didn't find the things that don't match. We don't know what it didn't find, right, when you searched.
Right. Right. But this feature was super helpful for me
Yeah,
when I was preparing when I was actually writing literature review. Um, so yeah, it helps me not miss references that I might if I were to were to do it manually.
that's good. I feel like one thing that I would really like for paper writing would be something that would let me search for summaries. And I feel like this is totally a perfect application for a large language model type of thing. But I'd like to search for like summaries of the papers that I've already cited and that I've already included in my works,
Hmm.
and searching like summarizing, paragraph granularity. So if I just like, I'd like to use like a really like natural language type query for something and say, I have this idea in my head. Give me all the things that are like this idea.
I see.
So I've seen a couple things that are like, like large language models that can run locally. And so instead of like Chat GPT, which is a cloud service, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it's trained on the entire internet essentially. um, but then I think there's a there's a niche there that I would appreciate, which would be like, uh, let me search my own uh, the body of work that I've already been interested in. So search within these things that I've already read, so
Right.
that I can find my uh, relevant references more easily.
Right.
I
Yeah.
kind of wanted that sometimes for like even like blog posts that I write. Like I'd like
Hmm.
to refer back to a previous blog that I wrote, and that sounds like the sort of thing you could do automatically if you had text type like semantic search of your own text.
Right. And I can see that would be super helpful because yeah, because you're whenever you're writing something, you're only apart from the new search that you're doing, which will also be included in what you just said, because you won't be writing something that you haven't read or like
Hmm.
about. So yeah, I think it's pretty. Yeah, it would be a pretty cool feature,
Have you heard of
but it'll
the
have
Z?
to.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it'll have to um, cross track, like track the data cross applications, which I
Hmm.
typically avoid. So at least on iPhone, there it asks like each app asks me if I want to let them track my data. So my option's
Uh,
always nope, don't.
yeah.
um,
Having done working in a doing research in like security adjacent field, my my big opinion here is like if you store data, it's just a matter of time until it's leaked.
yeah,
the best idea is just never store it in the first place.
Yep, that is true.
But then, like, yeah, if you have your own stuff and it's on your own computer still, um, feels like you should be able to search for that more easily. And maybe this is something that like operating systems should have. So like, there's the Windows, hit the Windows key and just start typing, and it makes a best effort guess at what you're trying to find. Like if you want to adjust your sound, you type in like either sound or microphone or speaker or audio, and all those things should hopefully pull up, something about maybe your system sound, or maybe there's a file called sound on your machine, and maybe that should be like ranked a little bit lower.
Mm.
But yeah, like semantic search is a pretty powerful thing, and it seems like, you know, large language model, machine learning type stuff could be a way that a wider audience gets access to that kind of thing
Right. Yeah.
eventually, after
Yep.
we figure out how to make money off of it first, right? As an industry. So like OpenAI is selling, Chat GPT, so a certain number of tokens, and that costs a certain, like a few cents per thousand tokens or something, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, eventually that sort of stuff, that technology will trickle into other applications.
Yeah. But I'm very, um, I really like ChatGPT. It's this morning I was confused about a data structure that I wanted to use, and I couldn't find an example of that online when I was searching it manually, and I just typed for fun. I wasn't expecting any answer, but the ChatGPT actually found a valid answer to that, and
That's
it gave
good.
me an entire program for that, which
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah. I've played with it a bit, and at first I thought it was really spooky, right? I think a lot of people had the same reaction, like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is, it seems like a person responding to me,
Yes.
you know? It's the the fact that it kind of feels like it remembers what you previously were talking about, so you can refer to like, oh, that's not quite what I want. Change it a little bit, and you don't have to type out the whole query again. That felt like conversational, like it's remembering, keeping context. Um, and if I used it to ask for the solution to a problem that I already knew the answer to, then sometimes I could see, oh, it missed a big important piece of the answer. And but if I asked, then it could fill in the blanks. So it's interesting. It's like it's very productivity enhancing if you know what you're doing, right?
I would assume that it's gonna make life of teachers like you very
Oh,
hard.
I've already taken points away because somebody posted it as an answer something which was obviously ChatGPT generated.
I've heard that there are like um, plagiarism tools that incorporate ChatGPT answers.
I have no doubt. Yeah, it's a totally new world for trying to detect plagiarism, especially because of the style transfer. So you
Mm,
can ask for it to emit the answer in a slightly different tone. That makes it harder. That's essentially obfuscation, which is kind of like my research area,
oh,
but it's
nice.
applied to natural language instead of applied to like machine code.
Yeah.
So it's tough. But this is like any kind of security arms race. There's uh, how hard is it to use this tool to do plagiarism? Well, it's pretty easy by default, right? But if your teacher could tell that you just copy pasted the default prompt, um, then you have to put in a little bit more effort to say, oh, well, actually, respond, answer the same question, but instead of using your normal tone of voice, answer it like someone who just learned the subject. and use small words or something like that. Um, so that's extra effort, right? The student has to put in more time to craft their plagiarized response, and that's basically like it increases the cost,
Yeah.
right? It makes them less likely to do that. Uh, at some point, you break even, and the student would be better off just learning the material, right? So that's the
Yeah.
goal. Just like with security, the goal is not to make a perfectly secure system. It's, well, sometimes, but often it's just make it secure enough that any potential attacker would say, oh, that's too much work and move on to something easier.
Yep, that's true. I think in one of the assignments, I think one of our friends said that if they can hack this library, then they deserve points.
Yes, yeah, I've heard that several times. Uh, we've
So,
got a plagiarism detection sort of thing going on. If you can get around it, well, then you have been demonstrating ingenuity
yeah.
that is uh, worth some points.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always fun. And we did have one such student who did break that. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's cool.
So we were yeah. So Mendeley is one such tool um, that I use for papers, and I've found like it. The reason I said that I like it, but with a stutter, because now you're gonna make fun of me. I write my papers in Word, not in LaTeX. Not because I don't know LaTeX, not because I don't know org mode, but because my advisor corrects my writing in review that is offered by Word.
So, yes, I may be a super fan of org mode and plain text and all this stuff, but you gave the acceptable answer to why do you use Word for writing academic papers, which is your advisor uses Word,
Yeah.
which is sort of like that's what I tell students too. Like I like this text editor, I like this thing, I like that thing, but if your team uses something else, just use what your team uses. You know, if
Right.
your boss says you have to use this thing, fine, right? Get over it. It's just get the job done. That's what's really important.
Yep. So,
Now, yeah, it is. We like our tools because we spend so much time with them, but it's not the only thing.
yep. So the word plugin is sometimes buggy. Um, so
No.
yeah, but sometimes it. What happens is sometimes I just have to restart Word if it gets stuck. That's the only annoying thing it has, and also the UI, the user interface is. You can
You're talking
see
about
how the way it looks is not like 2023. It looks a little older. Its
yeah.
functionality is really good, but uh, the way it feels is a little old.
So you're talking about a plugin for Word that makes it work with Mendeley, right?
Yeah, so if I
Okay.
have to cite something in Word while writing, I don't have to copy paste. Like, I don't have to copy the citation and paste it in
Mm.
Word. I can just say cite and just like LaTeX, you have a tag associated with a bibliography, right? A bibtech
Hmm.
entry. So you just type cite and that tag. Um, in Word, Mendeley plugin comes as a pop up, and I can just search again the same search, the fuzzy search. I can search anything, and it's the same search that Mendeley has. So it'll give me a list of papers, and I can just select a paper that I want to cite. And I can
Yeah.
even have multiple papers selected at once to cite all of them
Hmm.
together in one citation. And
That's
it
pretty good.
and it adds all those papers in the reference section at the end.
Yeah.
And if I switch those citations up and down, it maintains the numbering, which is super helpful.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like that's probably the state of the art right now, like at least as far as I have used. Um, I mean, I haven't actually I haven't invested the time to learn like orgref and use it to its fullest potential, but uh, yeah, a plugin where you can get a pop-up and search for the relevant reference, that seems like, you know, that's as much as most people would expect today, but tomorrow, you know, in the future, it's going to be like, I just type some stream of thoughts here, and then the editor or the interface that I'm using figures out that what I was just typing is in fact a good the reference for that was this other paper, and it tells you about that paper. So it would search your own text as you're typing and
Yeah.
figure out that should be citation. You just made a claim that needs to be backed up. You know, like on Wikipedia where it says citation needed,
Yeah.
it should find those citations for you and insert them as you type.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
we'll get there eventually.
That would be a productivity tool.
Yeah. And well, hopefully then that means like you get then clued in about other papers that you didn't know already. Like you didn't know to search for it, but
Right.
your text is so similar that you should be reading this paper, right?
Hmm.
I feel like that's a thing that's one of the things that such machine learning stuff could bring to our world instead of just, the dystopian hellscape that we're expecting to turn into.
Yeah. Um, I think I've seen an app. Of course, it's an app. I have a feeling. I'm not sure because I've not used it, but it might have come in those YouTube ads because I search for a lot of productivity tools. So YouTube bombards me with these apps, but I think I'm not sure what it's called, but it's like advertised with saying second brain or something. So I think
Oh yeah.
whatever you do, you feed into it, and then it gives you, it makes like a graph database of things, and
Ah,
then
yeah,
you
I think you might be there's something that is I think a commercial tool called maybe Rome. That might be or Obsidian. I think it might be
something
Obsidian.
like that. Yeah, yeah.
I've heard of these, and there's another older system which is not an app, but it's called Zettelkasten,
Hmm.
um, which I think in German means something like uh, pieces of paper, or something like that.
I know
But it's
that the
yeah,
the
it's
word.
just organizing very small linked notes to each other.
Yes, and that's a method of organizing your stuff, right? It's
Hmm.
like a
Yeah,
very well-known method.
right.
Yeah, and it also helps you learn things. I think.
The way I've heard that described is it was some very prolific uh, academic author
Mm-hmm.
who published many, many papers, and it helped them organize their thoughts, which means they were able to make those inferences better. So it's like a
Hmm.
good way of like helping your brain work to its fullest potential.
What's the name again?
Zettelkasten. It's
Oh,
like
Zettelkasten.
a
Okay,
German word, I
I
think.
see.
Let's see what it actually means. We've got the internet, right? I'm gonna probably spell it wrong. I think I did spell it right. Oh yeah, so it's a uh, like a cabinet of little drawers of little cards on inside the drawers, and each card is a small note. Um, so it stands. The word actually translates from German into slip box, or
Hmm.
like slips of paper in a box.
I see.
And the point is that they're all small, which
Hmm.
means you can't put the entire like summary there. You just have to put like a sentence or even a few words, and then link those to other things, other topics that you've already kept.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like you were saying you have tags,
Right.
right? And a tag is not a category that you have to put something into this category or another category exclusively, but a single idea can be tagged with multiple different topics, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's like organizing system. I haven't tried it.
Yeah.
I there although because Emacs eats everything, there is org Rome. That's right. You can have Rome, which is one of these systems, but it's the open source version and it works inside of org mode.
Of course it does.
Yes, of course it
Of
does.
course, it has to work inside org mode. I would not be surprised if we have like a state of the art game, whatever the new the game New World is gonna work in org mode now. I don't know. Or
So
Minecraft's
uh,
version of org mode.
I saw some great quote, which is like, "Hey, I heard you're an Emacs wizard," and the response is, "Yes." Poof! I made my free time disappear, which I feel that very
Is
strongly.
that from XKCD?
No, that's some blog. I'll try to
Okay.
find it. Oh, speaking of trying to find sources for things, we should start to do show notes where we just mention, if we mention something and remember what we were talking about, we could put a note in text form or something that somebody could click on to
Yes.
find
Yes.
more information about that topic. So we'll
Yeah.
get to that
Yes.
someday.
For sure. I think we're improving in the way we're organizing this. So I'm
Yeah.
sure we can do that quickly. All right. So how much time do we have?
Uh, I think we are coming up on maybe 45 minutes or so.
Okay.
I didn't start a timer, but we started pre-meeting at 6:30, so it's almost 7:20 now.
Okay. So yeah. So I would like before we wrap things up, I would just like to mention the note taking app that you uh, said that I use.
Yes, yes, you use a
Yes.
note-taking app. Tell us more about it. Tell me more
Yes.
about it, Prateek.
Notion is the app
Ah,
that I use. Well, I sort of use that when I'm taking notes on my laptop. Um, and the best thing about that app is um, that that app is available on my phone as well. So I have access to all those notes on my phone. So sometimes, like when I'm just having a casual conversation with, say, my boss, I don't necessarily have to remember my work uh, or open my laptop. I can just scroll through my phone and have everything there. The integration of that app with GoodNotes, which is an iPad app for writing stuff. Okay, you're noting things. I like
yes,
it.
I'm taking
Thank
notes,
you.
by the way.
I should be doing that too, but thank you. So yeah, so GoodNotes is the app that I use for writing with the Apple Pencil on my iPad, um, which which I find. So there are two apps. There's one more for you. Notability, um, but I prefer GoodNotes because it makes my handwriting look prettier. They're both fantastic apps, but I just prefer GoodNotes. Um, so if I'm writing something, or as you said in the last episode, drawing circles on an iPad is much faster, even
Mm.
though the right handwriting is sometimes slow than typing. Um, so if I'm drawing something, I can just take a screenshot on my iPad, and with the Apple ecosystem, it's a seamless copy. So I can just take a screenshot on my iPad and like copy it in Notion. So it makes my notes really easy and organized. Um, so that's typically my workflow.
That's good. Seems like anything that reduces the friction for getting your ideas flowing and, saving them in some format that you can stand to look at
Yeah,
and
and the
share
best
with
thing
people.
is
That's good.
Yeah, and the best thing about the GoodNotes app is it can search my handwriting.
Ooh, that's pretty
So
cool.
if I have notes, and I've written something, it can search the typed text and
Hmm.
handwriting and list everything, every word in all the documents that
All
are
right,
there.
here's a challenge for it. If you drew a little diagram, but you can't find it, could you search for that diagram by drawing another one?
I cannot search a diagram. This the search box is just alphabets,
Ah,
and you have to type it. The search the search box.
so it's almost there. It'll get
Yeah,
there someday.
I know,
Yeah.
but you did break the system. I will give you credit there. Yeah, but yeah, I like it. Uh, though because there's so many apps in this workflow, sometimes it gets a little chaotic.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes because a lot of times I won't always remember to take a screenshot, put it in Notion. So I have notes spread out in Notion and on my iPad. So sometimes searching can be a little bit of pain, but it's still better than flipping notebooks. Um, and yeah, I like it.
You mentioned screenshot, and this used to be one of the my biggest complaints about like kids these days. The modern person who instead of copying and pasting some text will take a screenshot and send you that instead, right? And that used to just, really annoy me because like I can't get the text out of the screenshot. I have to type it all out, right? Somebody sends me a screenshot of some code and says, "What's wrong?" and they don't have line numbers or something, then I just have to like explain it like by painstaking word for word or character by character. But, you know, new technology has come to save the day. Like on Mac, at least, when you have a screenshot that has text in it, you can actually highlight the text and copy it out as text.
Yes.
And suddenly my rage disappeared.
You can do one more pretty cool thing, not anything academic, but this is a fun thing that the new iOS came out with. Now you can make a sticker out of any photograph
What
without
do you mean
making a
sticker?
sticker. So say, okay, I'll
Do you
have
mean
to.
like a thing that is a physical object that is glue type of material on one side? And
No, well,
or do you
um,
mean like a fancy emoji?
fancy emoji. So if
Okay.
if if you send me your picture on text, I can just hold on to your like body, and that it'll it'll do an object detection by itself on the picture and make
Mm,
just your body as a sticker, and then I can forward it to you.
that's great.
I know I
Ah,
made it sound lame, but it's actually pretty cool.
well, I could see somebody liking that. I might have to see it to be convinced if it's actually something I would want to use, but
it was super cool to me because I had this friend who used to make memes out of art, like old pictures, and he used to be the cool guy because he used to send all these weird pictures of us, throw them at our faces whenever we made a snarky comment or anything. Um, I remember he had a picture of me eating something, and for some reason I had a grumpy face on, and he made a sticker on that, and every time I um, said something and he didn't like that comment, he used to send me that sticker with
oh,
just me eating something with a grumpy face.
a very personalized
I know, and
emoji.
he used to like put effort to it.
Yeah.
Like he had to like manually erase all the background stuff to make that uh, sticker and like make convert it from JPG to a GIF format, GIF. Um, but now it's just there. So all
Wow.
his efforts went to waste, I guess.
Or now he's got so much free time. It's relieved him of this burden.
I hope he he listens to this podcast and he'll know that I'm talking about him. But yeah, I think we're out of time now.
Yep, getting close to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
this has been
The
a great episode.
yes.
I think next time we I think we squeezed all of the energy out of that topic that we probably want to do for a while. Otherwise, it's going to be that's the whole topic of the podcast.
Yeah.
Eventually, we should come back and say something about matrix multiplication because that's the name.
Yes. Yes. That should be a special episode
Yes, special episode where we talk about the topic that it seems like we would be talking about all the time.
on Matt Mull.
All right.